We have identified Goal 13, Take Urgent Action to Combat Climate Change, to be directly linked to our research. Our research contributes to achieving this goal by pinpointing the areas of improvement in national policy regarding the tourism industry and raising awareness of the adverse impact of climate change on tourism activities. In his paper, Howard Stern claims that climate change could potentially cause irreversible damage to the world. The tourism industry is at a unique place where it is both the contributor and victim of climate change. Developing countries such as Malaysia, Indonesia, and other Southeast Asian countries are found to be most vulnerable due to their geographical location and lower adaptive capacity. Therefore, this study is proposed to address the issue by evaluating the impact of climate change on tourism demand, with a focus on the Southeast Asia region. The objectives are to find out what are the factors that affect tourism demand in Southeast Asia, whether climate affects tourism demand in Southeast Asia, and whether changes in climate affects the tourism demand in Southeast Asia. The rationale of this study is to fill up the gap in research on climate change and tourism demand of Southeast Asian countries. The result of this study will assist policymakers in formulating mitigation and adaptation strategies against climate change and to add to the existing knowledge on the impact of climate change on tourism demand at a regional level.
As for literature review, climate change is gaining popularity among researchers due to its potential adverse impact on the planet, on income and welfare of the population. The most notable economic publication on climate change is by Howard Stern, 2007. In his paper, Stern called for urgent actions against climate change, in which he argues that any delay will result in irreversible damage to the world. Studies on the impact of climate change on tourism have been largely ignored in the past. Go 2012 argues that climate is an important socio-psychological factor that influences destination choice and tourism demand.
I'm responsible for the research framework of our group. The study of this topic mainly contains two backgrounds. First is the theoretical background. Climate change affects a variety of natural and biological systems. The second is the reality background. Southeast Asia has seen one of the fastest development of tourism since the 1980s. However, due to climate change, tourism in Southeast Asia has been affected to some extent in recent years. Research on the relationship between climate change and tourism began as early as the 1960s. In the 1960s and the 1970s, the climate requirements of tourists, tourism and outdoor leisure activities are mainly studied. By the 1980s, the research focused on the analysis of the potential impact of climate change on tourism activities. In the 1990s, people mainly studied the adaptation of tourism to climate change. The current situation of theory and research is mainly divided into three aspects. The first is the concept of climate change. The second is analysis of climate change data in Southeast Asia. And the third is the response of the international community. The research content is mainly divided into the following points. One is to predict the impact of climate change on Southeast Asia tourism industry. The second is to predict the change of climate
methodology. The data set of annual tourist arrival from 30 origin countries from 2010 till 2020. Data structure are panel data and secondary data. The study consists of a balanced panel data of 300 observations. Southeast Asia countries are Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, and Philippines. Our study aims to evaluate the impact of climate change on tourism demand for Southeast Asia region, using the standard tourism model augmented with the climate change. The variable used in tourism demand model for our study are the standard tourism model and the climate variable. The dependent variable is calculated using the following formula, where the TA is the total tourist arrival to Southeast Asia countries from country of origin divided by total population in country of origin. However, the independent variables are Y, the income level in country of origin, ER, the currency exchange rate of destination currency per unit of origin, RP, relative price of prices in destination to prices in origin, and climate variables, which are the temperature and humidity. Static panel data technique provide more accurate parameter estimates and allow researchers to incorporate more vivid information. Ordinary least square is employed to estimate the parameter in our study using pooled ordinary least square model.
The last part, conclusion. Global climate change is not only an environmental, but also an economic, social, and political issue. It could affect the survival of the entire human race. The potential threat of climate change to the Southeast Asia region is also enormous. In the context of climate change, drought and floods are increasing in the countries of Southeast Asia. The impact of climate change on tourism. Firstly, climate change is making it more difficult to develop tourism projects. Secondly, the impact of climate change on the income of tourism and the national economy. Thirdly, the impacts of climate change on tourism management and employment rate. In order to achieve the third goal of sustainable development of the UN, we should take the following measures. Firstly, to raise awareness of climate change in all walks of life. Secondly, strengthen the ability of science and technology, resilience and innovation of tourism resources. Thirdly, attaching importance to the strengthened international cooperation and learning from international successful experience. Fourthly, to integrate climate change issues into education and teaching to achieve sustainable development. Summary. Summing up that the way for Southeast Asian countries to deal with climate change will follow the path of persisting in protection and innovation with science and technology development, strengthening international cooperation, seeking the results of global sustainable development, and making their own efforts to deal with the negative impacts of climate change in Southeast Asia.